to let that ramp up. All indications are green. All right, the meeting is yours, Madam Chair. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:03. And we'll take any public comments. And I forget the code or whatever they have to
Sure.
to raise their hand.
I'll handle that for you, Madam Chair. So any of the callers that are online right now, if you'd like to speak for open comment, real quick, Madam Chair, were we supposed to say the pledge?
We don't usually for the specials.
Okay, sorry. To any of the callers that are on the line, feel free to press *9 on your keypad if you'd like to speak. Okay, we have a couple callers. Callers, I will announce the last 4 digits of your phone number. Please press *6 to unmute yourself and then state your name and address for the record. We will start out with caller 7779. Go ahead, caller.
Yep, I'm here.
Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, caller.
My name is Jason Sawalik. My address is 1901 Bridgepoint Court, Commerce Township.
Go ahead, caller.
I was calling in because I was disappointed in the township. Over at Commerce Memorial Cemetery, I have a loved one buried there. And a few months ago, I went and visited him at his grave, and I saw that there was construction equipment out there. Now, I was a little concerned at first. I really didn't think anything about it until I went back for another visit. I see that the third phase of the cemetery has been torn apart. There's a parking lot there now. I think that was classless on the township's part. Can you take me through and tell me exactly how that happened?
During public comment, it's not a discussion session. If you want to reach out to a board member during business hours, we'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I just wanted to express my disgust in the township and what they did with the cemetery. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call on the next caller here with their hand raised. I'm sorry?
And do you see that there's somebody else waiting to get in?
No.
Somebody has entered the waiting room 5938.
I let them in already.
It looks like they're in. Okay.
Yep. Okay, caller, with the last 4 digits, 6150. Feel free to press *6 to unmute yourself. And again, state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, my name is Bruce Jakeways. I live at 1841 Lorene, L-E-R-E-N-E Drive. And I just want to say, in roughly 75 days, the winter taxes will start to be due. What is the board's plan if residents and businesses have problems paying because of the COVID lockdown? And going forward, does the board have a plan to help residents and businesses if there's another lockdown? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. We have another hand raised here. This is caller 0054. Go ahead and press *6, caller, and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, caller.
My name is Mike Miller. Address is 5320 West Bridge Trail, Commerce Township, Michigan.
Go ahead, caller.
Okay, so a caller earlier had mentioned the cemetery, and I just, you all know how I feel and how my family feels. I just want to publicly, I wanted to do it last week, but I wasn't able to. I just wanted to ask a question. In the whole phase of going through this cemetery sale to a private company, and I guess I have to reach out to you to the trustees and to Mr. Scott individually. But what I'd like to know is that what process did you go through? What logic did you go through to reach the conclusion that selling phase 3 of our cemetery, which we're running out of property anyways, which one day we're going to need anyways, was a good decision for Commerce Township. Because I can't get there. And I try to check the ethical box, the spiritual box, the moral box, the financial box, and I can't. And I'm sure you guys went through some process in order to come to the conclusion that it was a good deal for the residents of Commerce Township. I just can't get there. Okay. So I'd like to know, in selling that property, what advantages do we have now as Commerce Township residents? In addition to that, I'd like to know, are you contemplating selling any other piece of property that we own currently to private companies? And I say this as respectfully as I can, and I do want to understand where you guys are coming from, or we're coming from, in order to reach this conclusion. And I want to understand it. And before Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? So I am open to that, but I just can't see it right now. So my heart's heavy on this. My younger son Austin is buried over there, and it means a lot to me. And going through the minutes and going through prior meetings, I can only see one board member, Trustee Rick Sobel, that had the understanding that this may not be a good deal. And so he did check the moral box. He checked the financial box. I don't know what everybody else did, but I do want to understand where you're coming from. Maybe I'm not seeing something. I'm open to that, but that's where I stand today. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Miller, this is George Weber. If you'd like to reach out to me, or I can reach out to you, I'd be happy to go through the whole thought process on that.
Thank you, George. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any other callers? I think that actually is all the callers that are on the line. One last call. Any other callers that have not spoken and would like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad. Okay. Oh, we do have one caller here. Yes, okay. So caller with the last 4 digits of 5938, please press *6 on your keypad and then state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, my name is Mike Miller Jr. My address is 151 Mobasso Street. I live in Wolverine Lake, and I'm calling in support of my parents, Mike Miller and Kirsten Miller, in regards to the parking lot that was put up next to the cemetery. I know that there's a right way and a wrong way to do a lot of things, and I feel that the right thing wasn't done with the property next to the cemetery. So I'm just here in support of them. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. And I think that covers all the callers, but if we've missed anyone, if you'd like to speak, again, please press *9 on your keypad. Seeing no other callers at this time, Madam Chair.
Well, I was asked to add an item to the agenda, but we do not have a full board, so we can't amend the agenda at this point. So we'll sit tight and wait to see what happens and move on to the 2021 township budget.
Who are we going to start with first?
I hadn't thought that far ahead, and you're putting me on the spot, so you pick.
How about, all right, go ahead, Allison. You were first.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. So Janet sent on my behalf a budget memo and a budget worksheet for the library for 2021. I don't know if you guys want me to start out with just my summary. Do you guys have specific questions?
Why don't you paraphrase your summary and then we
Sure.
can.
Yeah. So essentially what I was looking to do in 2021 was to maintain the services that bring patrons to the library, maintain our staffing levels so that we can manage those services and essentially wait out COVID. It's a hard task to know what the library is going to be like in the summer of 2021 or come fall. So basically, my goal was to maintain where we're at in terms of our services, grow a little bit for our electronic services, so our downloadable books and our downloadable audiobooks and our databases, but continue purchasing our library books at the same level that we have been. In terms of staffing, we would keep staffing at the same levels. Just a reminder, we did essentially cut one department head when at retirement. So we did that in June or July. And then everything else is essentially remaining the same. I estimated a little bit of an increase in our utilities for the year. There's a small increase in our electronic library system. So that's just a contractual increase based on how much our library uses it. It's part of the consortium that we're a member of. And then estimating that we're going to have some drops in revenue because, patrons aren't in here like they usually are. They're not using the computers like they do. So taking those things into account. We can't rent the meeting room right now because people aren't allowed to gather.
So Allison, I have some questions.
Sure.
As I usually do. Well, I guess you wouldn't know that. So I guess one is for the board, more of a question. So I see a standard 3% increase. Is that what's in our contracts? How have we decided that? What is the fire and or AFSCME contracts that have already been agreed on?
It is 3%.
Okay. So that was the one question for that.
Library is all, Bob, library is all non-union.
I know, but we generally match things up to be the same. Doesn't have to be, but we generally do that. So I wasn't sure if it was 2 or 3% for this year. So Allison, the question I have in looking at the spreadsheet, how did you just put a number in here? I mean, when I'm looking at things that are books and materials where we had 190,000 projected in the budget, the actual in the previous year was 193. We've only spent 108. I mean, I don't know if that is something that is all of a sudden going to be a lump sum that's going to take it up to that in the end of the year, or if it's something that's done consistent, which if it's consistent, we're on target to spend about 160, but you're bumping it to 215. I mean, I understand your reasoning for the ebooks.
Yeah.
Although I would also ask on the ebook piece. I mean, I know I mentioned this several times, and it's not meant that I'm complaining per se, but I figure if I have the issue, hopefully many others have it also. And I've got 6 books on hold right now that range anywhere from a 3-week hold to over 6 months. And so I know you've said you have folks that look at it once in a while. Is there different services that we have that give us more access to books, or how do we decide that Libby's the one we want or whatever?
So I'm actually going to ask you guys to amend a little bit. Janet and I got our wires crossed at the bottom. So these last few line items. So my recommendation is actually to put books and materials at 195,000 rather than 215. Keeping the electronic library system at 37.5. Dropping electronic databases to 90,000. And then creating a new line item for Overdrive, which is Libby, what you use, Bob, and putting that at 53,000. So essentially, the way Libby Overdrive works that you're using is that essentially the number of licenses that a library buys is how many people can read that book at a time. And unlike with physical books where librarians were, the libraries are paying wholesale for print books. So, and those print books can, sometimes they remain in your collection for 20 years. So, but the way an ebook is that the prices are really inflated by the publisher. So if I was buying a physical copy, I can buy 3 copies of a physical copy for just 1 copy of a digital copy of that same book that you're interested in reading. So, and they license them. So we can only circulate it for 2 years before we have to spend that money all over again. So publishers are making it really hard for libraries to do that and, not completely trash their budgets. So keeping that in mind and keeping in mind that people like you don't want to wait 6 months for a book, we're putting extra money into the overdrive service for this year. So right now we're spending about $1,300 a month on adult books with overdrive, and we would be doubling that next year. Is my projection, because people don't want to wait that long. And the tricky thing with digital materials especially is, we're all used to Netflix. Like, we're all used to clicking a button and then it's there. And for you, Bob, to hit the button and say like, oh, we'll have this for you in 6 months. Like, that's not good service. Obviously we have to keep our our budget. We can't have that service instantly. But we can certainly do a better job in filling that demand. So that was something that I looked at in this budget. And honestly, people will still wait spending this amount of money, and we could put more in. I would be fine with that. But, I wanted to, make this budget and keeping, in mind that 2021 is such a year of, we're looking at this year that we really don't know what it's going to be like.
What will the new wait time be once we put the $53,000 in? It's at 6 months now, let's say.
Well,
it's
not as simple as, looking, it's based on the individual titles. So if there was a book that you wanted that no one had checked out, you're not going to have a wait at all. But if it's a book that you wanted to check out and we only had 1 copy, and 10 other Commerce Township patrons had it before you, or are in the line before you, and they each get it for 3 weeks, that would put you 30 weeks out. And we can buy additional copies, but they're $60 or $70 each, whereas I could buy the book for $20.
But are people using the digital copy more than the book?
I wouldn't say that they're not using it more. People who do the digital copies, a lot of the times they're power users, so they read a lot. And it's the really big bestsellers where you're really building up that long waiting list. So, and it's a question, the tricky thing with bestsellers, for a physical copy or for a digital copy, is that it's only popular for 6 or 8 months. So I could buy 100 copies of it. I could spend, $6,000 on copies of it, but no one wants to read it, next year. And the year after that, when they make the movie, our license will have expired and we'll have to buy 20 more copies of it to fill the so it's really, and honestly, the publishers really have libraries kind of up against the wall when it comes to this. So the best to give the patrons the best service, we have to invest more money into it. And it's really just determining how much money it is that we want to invest, because that demand is there, and it's there really consistently. And, then the librarians, the people who, we pay to manage this, they're looking at the demand and they're saying, okay, this new book, that's coming out by David Baldacci, has 20 holds on it. Let's buy another copy, whereas this book, only has 2 holds. So let's just, we'll leave that at that level. So it's a lot of just managing it. It's managing those holds and, trying to spend our budget and trying to know what our patrons want, and doing it obviously in a way that's sustainable.
So do you have one person that manages that electronic copy, or is it just anybody?
We have one librarian who does the bulk of it. Yes.
Okay.
And it's very time consuming.
Allison, are there any services available that we can have less of a waiting time on digital?
So the tricky part is that Overdrive is, which is Libby Bob, has the newest materials. So we have a second service called Hoopla, and Hoopla, the nice thing about Hoopla is that we pay every time the item checks out. We pay them a certain amount of money, so it's $2, $3, but the items are older. So you don't have that wait, but you also don't have the same demand. So, and we spend between $1,000 and $2,000 a month on the Hoopla service. So it's not that it's not used, but you're not like the brand new James Patterson they don't offer that.
Do we advertise that, if it's not available here, at least check here?
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yeah. And we just try to do a lot of patron education because we don't want people to wait, for anything. In the perfect world, they're not going to have to, we're going to have an endless amount of digital copies and an endless amount of physical copies so that people are getting what they want right away.
So with your revised numbers, is the bottom line still the same?
The bottom line goes up a touch. It goes to, there's actually 2 more places that I need to make a couple small changes. If you guys want, I can just tell you what those are right now. Let's see here. So under board fees, which is the second line item under the appropriations, I raised that up to 9,500 to cover the cost of Merge Live moderating and live streaming the meetings. If that's something that you guys want to continue for the library to do.
I think we need to have discussion. Personally, I think we need maybe at a discussion session to decide what we want to do and if we want all meetings in that format or just board meetings in that format.
Yeah, certainly. And I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that it was in the budget if that was something that we were going to end up.
But I would think that should be under a contracted thing for the township, not under yours.
So can we?
I don't know. Molly, what do you think?
Yeah, let's be consistent. Let's be consistent throughout the whole township. Whatever category we use from department to department for Verge, let's be consistent.
Okay, I'll just make a note that we're going to put that. I think it's 3,500. We can move that wherever you guys decide that it's going to go for the whole township. I believe Ben put it in the budget, in his budget for all the departments that don't have their own dedicated millage.
Allison, I had a question about the board fees, just because it looked like it was awfully low to date for up to 8/31. Only $1,200, but that was budgeted for what, 6,300. Is it an attendance issue or meetings being canceled?
We've had.
Seems low.
We canceled a couple of meetings. We canceled February and March.
Okay. If there was an attendance issue, I would hope that would get brought to us at some point.
Certainly. Yeah. Honestly, I met with the board. My first meeting with the board was in January. We canceled in February because of the weather, and I actually haven't seen them in person since starting full time. So it's an interesting time to have a new job. The other thing that I made a change for was under capital purchases, and I think George, you wanted to talk about this anyway. It's your sheet probably, it should say 70,000, and I bumped it up to 80,000 because I was looking at the investing in the story walk. I believe you guys had a library staff did a presentation with you on a story walk in the past prior to my starting, but that is a little less than $10,000. So I wanted to put that in there if that was something that you guys were interested in adding.
I do want to have the discussion on the generator. And I guess we have to me, there's value in having the generator at the Richardson Community Center because of the service that it provides, and it also provides an emergency warming center if it's in the middle of the winter and we have residents that are in danger from a safety. I'm not sure I see that same logic for the library, particularly with the electronic capabilities that we have for books and for services of, especially in 2021, spending $70,000 on a generator for the library.
George, I would
As
jump
far
in
as
there.
that, I agree.
Apologize for being late in signing on. Thank you for being patient and charging forward. One of the bigger issues about why we had originally targeted the library as a generator supported building is if you happen to patronize the building when there's a power outage or a problem, everybody floods the library so that they can work, they can communicate, and they can do things that they can't do from home. It becomes a very active hub within the community where the senior center, if we ever get into a situation where we have a real shelter necessary, the Red Cross and the Walled Lake schools, Walled Lake Central becomes a regional shelter in case of tornado or problems of that sort of thing. And there's a list of cots and blankets and supplies to outfit Walled Lake Central High School. But the library itself becomes an absolute hotbed for activity in a case where we have a regional or a large or even a partial loss of power and connectivity to the community. They immediately turn to the library. We even had them coming to the library to charge atomizers for breathing treatments and things like that on a real steady basis. So that was the whole reason that I've always pushed to try to generate support, both the Richardson Center and the library itself.
George, just to piggyback on what Dave said, when the library was, a little history, when the library was at the other location, they lost power for some reason all the time. And it was an issue because, the students would go there whenever anyone else lost power, they would want to go to the library and the library would shut down, like Dave said. So we had an issue with in the past, which is why it kept getting brought back to make sure it goes into the new building. I don't remember why we didn't do it with the construction, if it was cost or what, but it was an issue before.
But that
The
was,
only thing I would say is the library
7 years
hasn't
ago.
lost power. I mean,
Right,
how
this
long?
location hasn't.
This location hasn't lost power.
But in
And
the
I mean, if
past
we
it had.
have a major power outage in the area, I mean, to me, this is a need versus a want that George uses. And in this year, I don't think we need to look at a generator. If we want to hold it till in the future, maybe, but that's my feeling.
No, I understand.
So Allison, back on the books, I also had a decrease in numbers on your books and materials. I arbitrarily wrote down 190,000 and then wrote 90,000 also on your electronic database. Your math or my math on the overdrive, you said we did $1,300 a month. Is that what we spend on it?
Typically, yes.
Okay, so that's about 15,000 a year. Does that sound right? Yeah, that's about 15,000 a year.
That's
So,
$15,000 on content. We also pay a $10,000, $12,000 a year to be part of essentially it's the platform fee, and it's
okay,
joining.
but that won't
as part of
change.
the consortium.
But that wouldn't change. Does that change depending on the volume that we use?
That doesn't. That's determined
Okay.
at the consortium level based on our population. So they
So
right.
from
And then
15,000 to roughly 50, or let's just say 45,000, we're looking at 3 times the amount.
Right. And then the
hopefully.
additional funds would be, we haven't done a great job of having youth materials included in there. So that's the remainder would be going towards youth materials, which we haven't
That's
prioritized
fine.
in the past.
I don't know what, well, whatever. I don't know what youth materials. So you're looking at putting a separate line item for that particular product.
Because
and is that considered the best product out there?
It is. It's really the standard, and that's who the publishers are selling the bestsellers, the electronic rights to. It's hard because they're essentially a monopoly. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. And the only other stuff I have is I know you're bumping up your water heater, sewer, and I realize ground maintenance. Well, that looks like it stayed the same, but I just don't see us spending that money. I mean, hopefully this means that the building's efficient and saving heat, but it just looks like it's been at least 2 years now that we've had. Have we gone through 2 winters over there? Does anybody remember? I think we have.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's fine to put the dollars in there. My point, I guess, is it doesn't look like we're spending near that amount. So
Yeah, it
we're
was really hard
3/4
for me
through
to
the year.
determine. It was hard for me
Right.
to determine because we weren't in the building, for 2.5 months. And so, for me to look at the.
So I personally don't have any issues with your requests and the line item change. The only issue I have is the generator for me personally.
Okay.
Unless I'll let everybody else ask questions.
Allison, I just had one additional question in just for my own knowledge. The line item for computer services, what is that?
Computer services. That's what Ben. So that's. I mean, those are our PCs. So that's what.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all of those. Yeah, all of those PCs and other items that we use. Our patrons use and the staff uses to keep the library going.
So are those leased, those computers? No. So I don't. So are those, is that the internet fees and things like that? Because we purchased the computer, so I don't know where that would come from then.
Some of it is the purchase price of the computers, where we have recently upgraded and then the software within, upgrading everything to Windows 10, I think was the most recent one. The licensing for different issues, and then additions, repairs, subtractions, things like that.
All right, I don't think we're spending that, because I think we had that increase for the Windows 10 last year. And 19 was 25,000, and so far this year it's only at 25. I don't know. Okay.
And remember, we've had several months of no activity, no damage, no failures, no upgrades. We have a very odd year. I will share with the board, and I haven't had a chance from my location to send it out. Received notice from the Michigan Townships Association that the legislature confirmed revenue sharing will continue. There will be no cuts in revenue sharing for 2021. So very positive as we're looking at numbers and discussing generators or any other thing. So income will continue.
That's positive.
It is positive.
Just wonder, but I wonder where they're getting it from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're paying for it somewhere, Dave.
You're right. No, it's always a leash on something there. And I apologize. Did you do anything on payroll or things? I know I sent everyone comparables.
We saw that. She discussed that. I personally don't have issues. I asked the question about what was in the contracts for raises. It was 3%. So I just wanted to make sure we were consistent with that. So.
Okay. I just would show that when I sent out the comparables, Allison did help me compile those from state wherever it was. We were on the low side. We obviously were lucky enough to get Allison, and with the number of people that she's managing, and working, I think that I did a placeholder. When we did this, we went over this budget at the Library Advisory Board. The two things that I kind of insisted was the electronic library system. We increased that from what was originally budgeted, and I was going to ask for Allison's payroll to be increased, as well as Bill Wine's, which is not my request, but it's Allison's, and it's rightfully so. Is just a reminder, every time that we've had a problem where our prior librarians have been ill, were hospitalized, were gone, Bill was the person who stepped up to take care of the library and do everything, even until Allison had arrived. So Bill is a very justified rate of position and pay. I'm guessing that the appropriate, if I'm going to throw a number out there, and not to embarrass or anything, but I do believe we should be looking at 83, 84, as a point for Allison, if you will, to continue on and move forward. Our comparables, when you look at, and I hate to use Bloomfield Township because Bloomfield Township is almost identical from staff, fire, police, population, things of that, but they're an oddball. So when you look at Independence Township, Orion Township, Rochester Hills, other areas that are far more normal and comparable, we're still at the bottom of the pool when it comes to payroll there.
Those are taxes.
So, Allison, I don't have any issue with what you've done. I do not think that we should, for 2021, invest in the generator. But I do want to say I really appreciate the logic and the thought that you put into this and the way that you presented it. It makes a lot of sense, very clear, and thank you.
You're welcome.
No, and I will tell you, and I'm preaching to the choir, so I won't drag on. Allison has brought a calm and organization to this library. She has solved many problems and accepted many challenges. Her ability to do research, and I honestly, I would tell any of you, if you ever need help, she's the person you should be turning to. And in many ways, I really want to be able to see Allison retained. I would hate to see our community lose her to a higher paying place. And they're out there, and she's a quality person. So I don't have a problem with the generator going on the back burner as something, that's something we can analyze. And as Bob said, we haven't been losing power at the library. So that has been the oasis available for the community to turn to when Lake Sherwood goes down or Meadow Ridge goes down or Gulf Manor. But I do think that, and I'm open for discussion, and unfortunately always has to be done publicly. But if you put Allison at 84,000, I think that's an appropriate number.
Well, I'm not, this is no offense to Allison, but it's already at 10 or 12%, unless she's telling us she's looking at other jobs. I don't know. I would.
I appreciate the discussion.
I'll take what she has.
I do think that there are opportunities out there, and I'd like to retain her. But
there's always opportunities. There's always opportunity. Some of that is also your work environment and how close you are to home. And I'm not, to some extent trying to take advantage of that, but
I do support the 84,000 number.
Well, she came in at the bottom of the pay scale that was suggested, and that's fine, but she has shown that she's worthy of a raise.
I agree. And actually, the 84 might even be on the light side.
I do agree, Rick. But I also want everybody to realize the reason that number that she started at was really because we had held our prior librarian who had medical problems, had issues, and had not performed, and repeatedly she was not given a raise from 16, 17, 18.
Just for clarification, Dave, we didn't not give her a raise because of medical issues. It was performance issues.
It was
I just want to make sure.
It had nothing to do with medical. It was
correct.
Performance.
It was all performance issues.
100%.
Please.
Okay. I couldn't agree more.
Yes. Or lack of performance. Yes.
Correct.
No, more accurately stated, Rick. I appreciate that.
So.
But other than that, if we look at Allison's pay, if we put the generator on a standby, obviously all those things can be amended at any given time. Is there any other discussion needed for the library?
So I do support. I would rather invest in Allison than the generator also at this point.
Thank you.
So yeah, I do support not the version we have in front of us, but the one with all the amendments that Allison's suggested.
Yes.
I agree.
So if we could tentatively approve and ask Allison to make the adjustments as discussed, tabling the generator and amending, working with Janet to amend the payroll so it works out appropriately. Is it safe to say that we can tentatively approve the library's budget?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. Honestly, thank you, Allison, for all that you're doing and coming through the gauntlet of questions. And obviously they're all meant with the best of intentions, no ill will whatsoever. But you have been spectacular. Thank you.
My pleasure. If you guys have any other questions, please, happy to answer them.
Thank
Get
you.
my books.
I'm going to check out
I'm
your whole
kidding.
list.
No, you're not. I'm kidding.
So I guess I should ask, Bob wasn't the old man that hit the drive-through window when it first opened, was
No
he?
way, because I don't do books. I'm
He
reading them
does
on my
ebooks.
phone.
That's the beautiful thing about ebooks is that you
E-books.
can't
Can you
drive
believe
into
it?
the drive-up window.
Awesome.
That's a plus. We talked about a lot of negatives about ebooks, but you're not going to damage our building.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay. What is the next panel page or area that you want to discuss?
Dave, can I interrupt
Please.
for a minute? Can we like kind of go backwards and now that we have a full board, amend the agenda to add an item?
Oh, thank you very much. I apologize. Again, thank you for welcoming me to to your home, to your office, everywhere we are today. I am far, far away. With that, Hans Renthrop worked with Jim Dundas, our fire chief, to formulate a contract to be in agreement with the state of Michigan so that our fire department had an ALS provider contracted and in place. So I would ask to amend the budget or amend the agenda this evening to allow ALS contract on behalf of the fire department to be added to the agenda, if I may.
If that's a motion, I'll support it. If it's not, I'll make the motion.
No, it is the motion and supported by Sobel. So motion by Scott, supported by Sobel.
So question is why is this an emergency? What do we know?
It is a time factor. We have a company that knows they're on the way out, and we have a company that is desperate to get in, and we don't want to have a lack of coverage or anything. They're going to do what they can to be the best, but this really was an emergency. Otherwise, I wouldn't have added it.
All we're doing is making a motion to add it to the agenda so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know if I want to add it.
Well,
nope.
I need to know if it's not an emergency, Rick, we don't need to add it.
Okay, we have a motion.
Okay.
It's been seconded. Let's do a roll call.
Yes.
Thank you.
Scott,
Aye.
Sobel,
Aye.
Magner,
Aye.
Burkheiser.
Can't hear you.
Aye. Sorry. Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Creech, aye.
All right. So I have a different concern than Bob, but I agree with Bob. Has our attorneys looked at this yet? I don't like when all of a sudden a contract just dropped on us without a chance to read it.
I appreciate your concerns and questions. This has been, and the chief is on here now. If you notice, the contract has been manipulated and worked through with Hans Renthrop. It has been approved at the attorney engineer meeting and sent through to the clerk and to the chief so that we could discuss this now. If the chief may give us the update, if you will.
So you mentioned that a company is on the way out and a company is on the way in, which to me sounds like somebody's already made decisions.
Well, I'm asking you to let me make this decision, George. And if you'll indulge me for a second, I'd give you a little bit of background on it. As Dave said, I'm asking the board to allow me to change our ALS provider, moving from community ambulance to Star Ambulance to back up the fire department. This move there'll be no cost to the township whatsoever. I believe it's the same and most likely better service that we would get from Star Ambulance. Like Dave mentioned, Hans and I have closely examined the contract, and after a few minor changes, we've been working on it for some time. We're happy with the document that was sent to you guys tonight. I'm sure that you haven't had a chance to look at all of the details of it, but it does give me the language that's necessary. This all started for me when we had to, every few years we have to have an inspection to relicense our ambulances. And the state inspector wanted some paperwork in writing that provides documentation for who our ambulance or ALS provider is. And us not having a contract in place, I wanted to get a contract in place. When that happened, I felt the need to do some due diligence to make sure that who Commerce Township is using is the best ambulance provider that we could find. In the meantime, I had many customer service related complaints about our current ambulance provider, Community EMS. I did on every occasion talk to the management of the EMS company we're using, Community EMS, talked about each issue, and they made many promises to me that they would get better. Some of the customer services issues, although I would prefer to avoid some of the detail of them with you in a public setting, were pretty significant in terms of our expectation of professional service to the taxpayers of Commerce. So again, what I'm asking you to do is allow me to change from Community EMS to Star EMS to provide our ALS service. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So Chief, do you have any information on the average response time that Star is achieving in surrounding communities?
Yes, so directly comparing us to White Lake, who Star Ambulance currently provides their ambulance service, and their record is slightly better response time wise than what we're currently getting from Community. Essentially, our service agreement with Star has a lot of the same things in it that Community currently has. We would allow them to use the Fisher Street station to house their ambulance, and they would be responding from the same location.
So Community, because I have this as a different question, their response time is over 9 minutes. So when you say Star is at or slightly better, if that's the comparable, and understanding that our own response time is just over 6 minutes for our personnel.
So there's a little more detail than simply taking the average response time in it, George. So the handshake agreement that we've had with Community Ambulance for a while is they would be at our runs within 10 minutes, 70% of the time. I get a monthly report from Community Ambulance using their statistics, their numbers from their dispatch on when they receive a call and when their folks say on the radio that they're on scene. And they hit that mark, that 70% of the time mark for a 10-minute response time, only 6 out of 12 months in the last 3 years. Now, sometimes when they miss the mark, they just barely miss the mark. It might be 68% of the time in one particular month or 65. But still, that agreement, that 70% mark, is far below what the county protocols ask for in terms of ALS coverage. So what Star has put in their contract is they will be within 10 minutes, 90% of the time. Now, whether or not they can hit that mark, I don't know, but I have talked to the chief and the firefighters in White Lake, and they are very satisfied with the service that Star Ambulance gets them. Currently, many of the complaints customer service-wise that I received about Community Ambulance in the last couple of months came from our own firefighters about things that weren't done properly or how some of our citizens were treated when they were transported to the hospital. Those things are concerning to me. Response time wise, I would expect that they would be better than what we've had with Community. And I know that's a roundabout answer, but response time, you can certainly spin those numbers a lot of different ways. And I just want to be able to look at it from all the angles.
Chief, is one, are they able to next week or whenever the heck it is, immediately step in and have enough support? You had a conversation where they get a lot of turnover in that field because folks usually try to go for, there's not usually a full-time job in contracted ambulance services. I remember that conversation.
Well, there are full-time jobs, and there are people that have been there a long time. That's a pretty rare thing. It's a tough job they do, and to be honest with you, they're underpaid for what they do. So truthfully, it becomes a lot of talented paramedics end up moving on to full-time jobs, either in the municipal sector or with a hospital or something like that.
Right.
There are some folks that stay there. The ones that stay there typically, they get burned out. They get beat up a little bit by the system and that. But again, I think, I'm not sure any ambulance provider is going to give us a perfect service, but it appears to me currently that moving to Star would provide a better service for us right now.
So Chief,
But
how much?
so the original question though was, are they going to be? Do they have the staff, sort of like the garbage trucks? Do they have the ability to step in whenever this starts and take care of us? Are they hiring people from community? I mean, how? I don't know how.
No,
that
they
works.
have people ready to go, and they've assured me of that.
Okay.
Hey, can I ask a question, Bob?
Yep.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rick.
I didn't
So
finish
Chief,
mine.
with CM, does Novi still have a contract with CMS where they were paying for them to have one or two ambulances like primary, so they got first shot of the calls? They paid them like $100,000 a year, something like that. They were doing that a few years back. And if that's the case, is Novi getting precedence over our calls with CMS, which is contributing to our slow response?
So every time I've talked to community EMS about neighboring communities and how changes would affect commerce, they've always spun it to me like every change was going to help us. So at first, community did have the contract with Novi, and Novi does pay them a substantial subsidy to provide ambulances there standing by just for 911 calls. Commerce has never done that. I'm not asking to do that. Then community ambulance, for some of the same reasons I'm asking to change, they lost the contract in Novi to another company. Superior Ambulance currently provides that very same service. Now, when community ambulance had Novi's contract, they told us that there would be ambulances right next door if we ever needed them, that would help us. When they lost the contract, they gave me the opposite argument that said, now that we don't have to worry about Novi, we'll have more people available for you. So they were spinning it both ways on me. But in any case, instead of our backup ambulance coming from Milford, which is what we had with community, it'll come from White Lake now. So we still have one ambulance in Commerce all the time.
Okay, so what other communities is Star supporting?
Highland, White Lake. There's several others. They also do Pontiac and some others that are north and east of us.
So are they going to keep one unit in the old Station 2, or the old Fisher, call Fisher, and then the other, and another roaming around, or are we just going to have the one and that's it?
It would pretty much be the one and that's it. And then, like I said, they have another unit that provides the same service to White Lake. This would essentially be the same agreement that we have with community, only instead of coming from Milford, they come from White Lake. If we need a second.
So since we can't transport for ALS yet, and if there's only one unit available for an ALS call, and I see repeatedly you have 2 and 3, medicals at the same time. So what's going to happen for that patient if there's a need for a second ALS call and the first one's tied up?
Well, then what happens is ALS is also at the door of the nearest hospital as well. So if there's any substantial delay, and I mean a delay of more than 10 minutes on any call, my guys are under a standing order that they will load and go and take the patient to the hospital and not wait for an ambulance.
So would that be to Henry Ford or Beaumont or to Huron Valley?
We would go to Providence Novi, Henry Ford, and Huron Valley.
Okay.
All three of those hospitals, Rick, you might remember, have applied and received and are in the process of getting trauma status in some way, shape, or form, where before it was Royal Oak Beaumont and Botsford Hospital.
Yeah.
So we go to Botsford sometimes too.
Botsford is now, I consider Beaumont, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So Chief, what are you asking the board to do tonight?
Just allow me to make the change. That Hans, the township's legal counsel, told me that some time ago, a long time before I was the chief here that the board voted to use community ambulance, and for me to change, I should bring that in front of the board to allow me to make that change.
When are you trying to make this change?
If you guys approve me today, I would probably have the change made this weekend.
Oh.
I have to give community ambulance a chance to make their move and give Star Ambulance a few days to bring their unit down.
So I'll
we
make a
don't have a
motion to provide, I'll make a motion to provide the chief the authority to make the decision to move the ALS service contingent upon township attorney contractual language.
Support.
Support.
Motion by Weber, supported by Scott. Any other
One
discussion?
last question.
Please,
Chief,
go, Bob.
you mentioned Superior. Is this something, and I'll just say, is this something you would bid out? I mean, why would we not be looking at other multiple entities?
Superior's fairly new in the ambulance area. That right now they, in terms of providing 911 service back up to fire departments, they do have the no-buy contract. However, if we were paying a subsidy, if we were paying an ambulance company to stand by, then I would suggest that we would put that out to bid and get the best price and the best service that we could. Since what I'm asking to do costs nothing, we are not paying any subsidy to have an ambulance there. They simply will get paid when they do their work. Then I felt it better to go with an established company that had backup units in the area.
So Chief, can this have to be done tonight? Can we wait till next Tuesday? Do we have enough research done?
I feel as though I've researched as good as I can. I have spent a lot of time with Hans. He's happy with the contract. I've sent the contract to Star. I feel as though they won't have any issues with it on their end at all. I'm certainly happy to wait if you want me to. I don't think that I would be changing anything if you wanted me to bring it in front of you again.
So I'm not concerned with the contract language, just I guess, since it's just kind of being dropped on us as far as, the analytics, what support, what are you seeing? What numbers are you getting from the other communities that say Star versus somebody else, other than I understand you're having some experience issues, which, it's very credible within the township from our own fire department, but
it's not just from our own fire department. I've gotten complaints from citizens and some of the facilities that we frequent as well about the ambulance service. I would say that this is not as much about response time as it is about customer service in general.
So what other ambulance companies are available to us?
Well, there are others out there, but in considering them, I feel as though Star is the better one for us to go with now. I did interview the people at Star. One of the major advantages with using Star is that when I have met with the leaders of community ambulance over the last 3.5 years, in those meetings, there's a different person in charge. There's a different manager in charge from time to time. There is a lot of turnover there. The folks at Star Ambulance have been the same people running that company for 17 years now. And that's
Bill and Jerry.
Say that again?
That's Bill and Jerry Grubb. They used to man the station in the early 80s on Fisher Street.
They have a very good understanding of fire department responses and EMS and their role in it. And I feel as though that this is a company that will stand behind us. So,
and Chief, we have no contractual obligations to community. We could tell them you're done tomorrow.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
So with that, a motion by Weber, supported by Scott. Could we have a roll call vote to authorize the chief to make this change?
Weber?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Creech, aye. Phillips?
Aye.
Burkheiser?
Aye.
Magner?
Aye.
Sobel?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Chief, obvious, I don't think there's another thing on the agenda that is fire related, ironically. And the same with Allison. Please don't feel the need to hang on throughout this meeting. Thank you for your participation and make that happen, Chief.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your support.
So with Mr. James on the line, do we want to do building department next?
Please and thank you.
So I see this meeting started at 6.
Yes.
Why is that? My bad. I apologize.
No, not a problem.
We didn't get to
Myself,
you till
so-
7.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you guys were going to put me first.
You are at 7.
Allison logged on at
Allison was on
4:45 so
before
she could
you,
be
that's
first.
And she's still here.
Okay,
So-
Jay, give us, we have all had a chance to look at your numbers.
Yep.
We have read your addendums, if you will. Give us the elevator speech. What's going to change? What's going to the same? And where are we at?
Well, the building department budget, I think, is very straightforward. We've estimated revenues, which honestly is my best crystal ball analysis. No one saw COVID this time last year. So I'm estimating the revenues, and I base that kind of on what subdivisions, what large projects are still on the books to do. We have a lot of subdivisions that have come off the books and are coming off the books this year. There's only one new subdivision over on Loon and Benstein that I see starting next year. Obviously, First and Main is not going to start next year. Barrington is going to be roughly halfway done by the end of the year. So I've estimated, and I would say I've estimated low on the more conservative side. The majority of the expenditures are all contractual. Those are just basically multipliers to the estimated revenue. The only thing that I've added in here is for a capital expense are printers for the tablets, which we purchased, it'll be a year and a half ago. And they were on the books for 2020. We were trying to use the tablets first and get used to those before we got the printers. And then, with COVID and everything, that's kind of pushed everything back. So I've moved that on to next year. Everything else are the utilities, membership dues, and near map, I think, is in there. So I think the building budget is pretty straightforward, but I'll answer any questions that you do have.
I had one question. More curiosity on how you came up with the amount for the contract services. Just because your revenue is less than so far this year, but the contract services is more. The cost is more. So I'm just wondering, do you base it on building permits? What are you getting that number?
The contracted service. So you will see, there will be a fluctuation in that because there will be permits that come in 2020 that don't get inspected until 2021. So the contracted services, you see those numbers in 2021 as opposed to 2020. So
it's the revenue in 2020, but the payout to you is in 2021. Exactly.
Okay. And same goes for 2019 into 2020.
Gotcha.
You will see that. So theoretically, if we built out and there were no more permits issued next year, there would still be inspections being done until those projects are closed out.
And then the salary is you as the building official, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So Jay, I always get this screwy. If I just look at the activity, and this is, I guess, permits that are coming in, you had projected, we're already at 150% of whatever it is, yet you're putting in less for next year. And I realize it's all a wag, which is fine. My question then is, if we pull in and let me just say, if you're pulling in on these permits, I don't know, $120,000, where does the extra money go? Is it going into your contract as services earned, or is it going into the fund balance?
Anything that remains goes into your fund balance, into the building fund. Building department.
So no matter what we do, your contractual services are $493,000.
No. I bill you per, so as we do the inspections, and I'll do just a deck because it's the easiest, straightforward. So a deck permit, let's say, is $100. 85% of that is contractually, so $85. So when we'll go out on a deck and do typically 2 inspections, a post hole and a final. So at the post hole, when we do that inspection, we will take 50% of that $85 at that time. And then when we do the final in a month, we will bill the other 50%. Now on houses or large developments, that percentages differs, but we charge it a percentage as we go along. So by the time,
And so the town makes $15 or whatever on that.
$15 on it, yes.
Right.
Regardless.
How often, this is somewhat, well, maybe it's somewhat related. If you have to go back on a permit or an inspection, is there an additional fee to the user?
There can be. If we go out and do an inspection and give them a list of 10 items to do, and they call us back to re-inspect it, and only 5 of them are completed, we will probably refee them. If we go back and they've missed 1 or 2, we won't. We expect when we give them the list that when they call it back, that it's done. And if it's not done, it's a judgment call on each one. But for some inspections, we'll go out 5-6 times for the same rough inspection or what it will be. And if it gets to that point, we will recharge for a couple of those, but typically we do not.
Okay, so what the next part of that was going to be, do you track how many extra callbacks you go back? I mean, is this a 10% of the time, or is this like 60%? And where I'm going, and I'm just going to say, is I've had a couple people say that it seems like some of the inspectors try to get their extra fee, and they write stuff up so that they have to come back out and make, I don't know, $50 more or whatever it is. I said, I've never heard that before, so now I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we can track it somehow, Bob. I don't have that in front of me, but if I had to guess, I would guess it's well under 5% of the inspections.
Okay. No, then that's not an issue.
I mean, there are difficult contractors that try to use us to do their punch lists, which is what their site superintendent is supposed to do. So they'll call us out and they'll want us to run through the whole building. In the first 10 minutes, my guy has got a list of 15 items, and I've told them to stop at that point. Actually 10 items is what I told them. You get to 10 items, they haven't done their job. Just stop the inspection, give them the list so far, and let them know that we're not done with our inspection.
I got a question. When there are like difficult inspections, like checking an air conditioning unit when it's 90 degrees up in the summertime, are they not doing that? Are they not going to people's homes right now because of COVID, or we've changed, temporarily some of the inspection issues because of people's concerns?
Right now, we didn't do any in occupied residence inspections for a while. And part of that was, it was all new. And I also left part of it up to my inspectors. If they didn't feel they were going to be safe going into someone else's home, I told them not to go in. But right now we're all going in, we wear masks. If anybody has an objection to us going in, we will try to make other arrangements, either pictures, videos. Actually, the building officials, there's something new coming out where they're trying to implement virtual inspections where they allow videos, but obviously there's a lot to be done with that. But right now we're going in, if everybody's feels safe, if the homeowner feels safe, if my inspectors feel safe, we will go in and do the inspections.
Can the homeowner say, no, I don't want you in, so they don't have to pay a fee, or they still have to pay the fee?
Well, they have already paid the fee, so we're going out there. So if we go, I mean, first of all, they wouldn't be calling in the inspection unless they're willing to let us go in to do it.
Okay.
For a while there, when they would call, we would ask just to make sure. But now that COVID has kind of become second nature, if you will, most people that call in are aware we're going to have to be in the house. Everybody has a mask. We take gloves, we take booties. I take my shoes off personally, but my inspectors have been told not to, unless it's a special situation. Liability issue is what I'm told.
Okay.
But we really haven't had any issues, to my knowledge, that have come up with residents or business owners having issues with us coming in to do the inspections. Most of them are glad that we're out doing it because they want to get it taken care of.
So Jay, maybe just a process question. The printers, is that so that the inspectors can actually print off, more than just a punch list, but print off a certification or whatever it might be?
Yeah, so what it is right now is with the tablets, we go through and we can actually, we input, the items that need to be done. We type them into the tablet. And when we bring it back in, that all download right into BSNA. But then we also leave stickers. So my guys now have to take the stickers and they handwrite out that exact same list on the stickers. So the thought is these printers they have, they can print them up, right from the tablet. It'll print the list of them up and we'll hang it with our sticker on the window or board, whatever they have for us to put them on.
Thanks.
And it takes away the issues with handwriting, which amazingly we get a lot of calls on. And they ask me to read it, and I can't even decipher some of it.
So,
Jay, when you look
Jay,
at, go ahead, Bob.
under your contractual services in the past, because and I'm not sure if it's linked to the next one or not that I have, you had ordinance or officer. Was that falling under you as a contracted item?
That's not part of this budget. That's a separate ordinance budget.
So in the past, though,
that is in my contract.
That was in your contract.
That is in my, yes, the ordinance work is in my contract.
Okay, and that is your contract hasn't changed, so you're still technically providing ordinance services.
Oh,
at
yes.
least until we discuss that. Okay.
Yes.
Will the contract amount change if we discuss it and make changes?
If we were to discuss it and decide to move forward, yeah, we would have to amend the contract just to eliminate that from my contract.
So if we, because I'm assuming, and I'll just say it looks to me like Dave, you're proposing that we hire our own ordinance officer as township employee. So if that was what we did, we'd have to amend your contract. If we did not want to do that, then you're still providing those services?
Absolutely. I really am still under contract, and if you guys choose not to hire a full-time, I will continue to do it to the best of my ability.
Okay. Where I'm asking is whether you're refusing to do that or whatever.
No.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm recommending that to you. I wouldn't be sitting here recommending to you to take revenue away from me unless I felt that was the best interest of everybody.
Okay, I'm gonna, as much as it pains me, I am going to play auditor's advocate here. Because the auditors always want to know. Now, I understand that in this budget thing, we're looking at, it's projecting that we're going to increase fund balance by $2,000, but obviously we're starting with a fund balance that is missing September, October, November, and December of expenses. So, but they have a tendency to throw a fit if our building department fund balance continues to grow, because for the township, it's supposed to be a net break even. Are we thinking that by the time we finish paying for the end of the year, it will actually go down this year? Anybody know?
Trying to find that page.
I have no problem with it.
My proposed budget,
even $2,000
year,
pretty close.
$2,000 over a $500,000.
No kidding.
Estimated budget.
It's less than 1/2 of 1%.
Yeah,
that's pretty good forecasting.
The point is, it's supposed to be a net zero to the township.
Oh, you mean our fund balance as well?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, actually, I believe
it's supposed to be just a service. It's not supposed to be a revenue generating anything.
No, it's not. And the current building department fund balance is probably high. The state, I think, expects you to keep 6 months of operating for the building department in that fund balance. But yeah, when it starts growing, and it grew, it was back in like 2014 and 15 when it really skyrocketed, when it was just me and Judy in the building department, and we were busting our butt to get it. And then that's when things started taking back off, and that's when the fund balance really grew. Because it was in a deficit for quite a while, from 2008 to maybe 2012. Janet might know. building department actually borrowed money from the township to keep running.
So if we wanted to keep it at 12 months of operating costs, what's the process for reducing the balance?
Well, we can come up with some ways to spend that. I mean, I know you guys want to just spend money to spend money.
So there's no way to transfer that to the general fund, obviously. Right, Molly?
No. I mean,
The only way you can do it is lower permit fees.
From a financial statement process, the building fund is considered, quote, part of the general fund, but it has to be accounted for separately. And it's not supposed to make any money. It's supposed to be a net. I mean, granted, you get, like Jay was saying, you get permits in at one point in time and you may not have to pay out for those permits. But I guess my question would be, are we sitting on, you know, $1.5 million worth of permits that haven't been paid out to you or refunded to people who didn't need them, or bonds or anything else? I'm, like I said, I know I'm going to have to answer the question. So.
Well, I can tell you there are outstanding permits, old permits. That's one of the things we were actually working on this year to try to dwindle, was the amount of outstanding permits that were out there. Hans isn't on the line, is he?
No.
I know Phil has been very adamant that once somebody pulls a building permit, if they never call in for a final inspection, that is to remain open. The state
forever
says after 6 months that permit is to become void, but Phil in particular has said it's got to remain open. So we send out postcards now every 3 months to those that are over 4 to 5 years old. And we're getting a lot of them that are calling in saying, either one, I didn't know we were supposed to call it in, or I thought the contractor was calling it in, and they're letting us in to do those now. So we're dwindling those down. But to answer your question, Maya, there are outstanding permits there. Is there $1.5 million? No.
But so to Molly, and I did not stay in a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not going to pretend to be an auditor. But if they're required, if Phil is saying they're required to stay open forever, that is like a massive contingent liability that we have no way of getting our arms around.
Right.
We need to have accruals and payables to, so if it's a $50 fee permit that comes in and $25 goes to the inspector, do we need to set up like a $25 payable and the other remaining 25 is ours to spend, or a future, a revenue for the future? Do we have to account for it like that, Molly?
It's not receivables and payables when you're talking building department general fund money. It's expenditures and money in. And so there's going to be timing differences between when you get the money in and when it goes out. And I think most of the bonds end up, Janet, don't most of the bonds end up in trust and agency, or are they in the building department also?
Yes, they're in trust and agency.
But not all.
The permit money isn't.
So, but it's not all. So we keep part of the fee. So how does that get accounted for?
Well, you spend that money back toward, I think it goes into your building fund, like the township hall fund, to like the windows. When the windows were replaced, I think that came out of that fund, or some of that came out of that fund. I did have a thought a while ago, and I was going to talk to Janet about it, and I forgot to. I'm sorry, Janet, put you on the spot. But when the township hall was built, I don't know if the building department paid their portion of the construction.
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and check.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there as a possible something that should have been done that maybe never was.
I'll have to check on that.
That all came out of the general fund, correct?
Right.
The construction of the township hall. I
mean,
we do have
building permits.
We pay for our portion of phones and heat and all that. I would have assumed the building department would have paid their portion of the new building department when it was constructed.
Well, you were supposed to pay rent, weren't you, at some point? Building department was supposed to pay rent.
I do pay rent. We're paying rent.
Oh, okay. I saw a rental. I don't know if that's on the budget. Rentals, is that what that is, or?
That was on last year's budget. I included money to develop the a rental program that went over like a lead balloon.
I see 0 next to it, so yeah.
Yeah, you will not see anything from me until you guys ask me for it.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yes.
No, yeah. Okay.
It's still bruised.
A little bit.
So, but where's the rent? Like, how much then do you pay for rent for the township hall?
I pay you back 15% of the building permit fees. So I charge you 85 and I pay you back 15.
So that's the 15 we were talking about in your deck example.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
No.
no, there's actually another 15% from the 100% to 85%. That goes towards capital purchases like the printers and scanners and other items that you will still need in the building department, regardless if current is there or not.
So where is that here? Where am I missing it on your?
So the rent that we pay, I believe, goes into a building fund, not building department, but a building township hall fund for improvements to the building. The other 15%, I believe, stays with the township.
That goes in the general fund.
General fund.
So I would suggest that the way this one's written is it's pretty neutral. Obviously, we never know, but Molly, if this is a concern, maybe get with Jay and whatever and come to us with a recommendation. I don't know what we can do here to do something. I don't know.
I think Molly's concern is when the auditors come to look.
I know.
Let me work with Molly and Dave and Missy and see if there's some things that money could be used for and should be used for. But
And ask Phil, because when Tom's owner was supervisor, we had a lot of money in there and we had to go through to try to move some money. So there were some things that were done. I don't know if it's maybe in the minutes, but yeah, I would definitely talk to Phil on that too.
Yes,
Yep.
I remember some of those.
Yeah.
And we are proceeding. Paula Langford's made a really big effort in locating old bond recipients that didn't, like CJ's Brewery had $2,500 that, he had never come back to get, and no one had gotten him. The building had sold, tracking him down, as well as Judy and, has through Kerr Engineering, gotten dozens of old permits where in between doing permits prior to the COVID, Ken and Ray and everybody were out daily doing follow-ups on old permits to get those things closed out, as well as Jay was doing with red tags where he had stopped work, red tag was pending, track the people down and get those resolved. So Kerr Engineering has made some real leaps in getting those things, and the planning department assisting to get some of those old bonds and everything remediated, because I guess at some point in time, when it's just lost money, we don't know where it goes. We're technically supposed to send it to the state and let them find the owner of that money to get it back to them.
So we're supposed to make the first attempt.
Yeah.
And then the check has to be outstanding for 2 years, and we have to send X number of letters if it's $50 or more. And then if we don't hear from anybody, then it has to go to the state. But we actually have to attempt to contact the people and pay them first before we can just send it to the state.
Okay. Obviously on the back, Jay did include in there ordinance cleanup. Those are I believe, are those erroneous things like Fisher Street where we have to go out and bid and get a cleanup service, a wrecking company, demolition company to come in and clean up like we're about to do in next week on Fisher Street again.
Yeah, those are, we track those because that goes into the lien on the property, as well as the cost of the cleanup from the cleanup contractor.
Yep. And then Jay and Janet transferred the rate of if we went to a full-time code enforcement officer, it's on the last page, what that would be, just for your eyes to determine.
So who would this ordinance officer report to? Would it be you, Dave?
I think it would be the supervisor position, but it would be, if you will, somewhat partnered with Kerr Engineering. So if he found something that, was outside of his or her purview, a silt fence or, you know, some things
Yeah.
that are building department related.
Building department, we would take that over, those
Yeah.
specific violations.
Is this
So
a union position?
Well, historically it has been. It's in the contract as a position that we did have as a union position. I know the tentatively if I had the magic wand, it would be a retired police officer, someone who knows how to testify, collect evidence, produce a report, and test, you know, and be able to report back to you, the Board of Trustees, on a monthly basis, how many contacts, how many activities. You know, the goal really is education. We've come a long way with the assistance of Jay since Jay volunteered and really added this to his work, to educate a lot of people and bring the standard up much higher. So it's been doing good things, but I do believe it would be a supervisor position. And then we do have the staff, when you look at Cheryl Smith and Tammy Cook, that would be able to do the letters and the communications and answering questions. The building department's spending easily 5 hours a day amongst 3 or 4 people answering code enforcement violations.
Janet, are you looking to see if it's in the contract?
Yeah, it's not in the union contract. We took it out.
Took it out. That's
did
what I
take-
thought. Okay.
Good.
Well, I like the idea of a code enforcement officer. I'm just not sure that the timing right now is a critical need for us. And I think we probably need some time to figure out how we want to structure that position. So again, I mean, really formalizing who doesn't report to, what are the job responsibilities, how do we go find the right person? Because as code enforcement officer is really the face of a township a lot of the times, and you want somebody with the skill sets to toe the line according to the ordinance, but at the same time do it in a manner that
Professional manner.
we're in a professional manner.
Professional manner.
Exactly.
So
we're on the same page there. We really are on the same page on how it has to present, how it has to proceed. I would just always caution you and go back in time to that, you know, and I've told you all the story. You know, Mr. Long was the supervisor, gave me the paperwork when, you know, the people of Oakland Park Sub were begging for code enforcement. It's been wanted since 1945. He chose to ignore it. We've got it in writing.
I would say I don't have a problem with I'll say putting this in the budget, but I would ask Jay to continue to do it, and with what George said, to come up with a plan on an appropriate rollover, whether that's January or something to start January, February, because I agree with George that there needs to be appropriate job descriptions, and I do agree that the right person has to be done.
Nope, I agree.
And then once that plan is presented to the board, then we can decide how we want to do that, or if we want to do that.
Right, I agree with, yeah, let's put it in the budget, and then we can decide if we want this position or not.
Yep. Okay. So then we'll leave the building department tentatively approved as it exists, and then the board can determine what gets enacted or where it is. But the baseline is there to operate from in the coming months.
And I think, yeah, it would be nice if maybe you guys started brainstorming and coming up with the job description and what the whole process is going to look like.
Yeah.
So that maybe early in 2021, then we can implement this.
It's going to be pretty easy to do, and we can plagiarize and there's a lot of things out there that are easily duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing is clearly, as I would say, getting the right face in the position, someone who has the skills to talk to people. It can't be that person who just upsets everyone. You know, there's a conversation to be had. There's education to be provided. There are metrics to be met, and that's there are some people out there who would be quality people for this.
Well, the board will be doing the interviews since it's not a union position, so that's helpful too.
Yep.
So we'll be able to test out the demeanor a little bit.
there's a fine line where you have to work with people. And like cross that line, you've got to be firm and say it's the way it is. And honestly, I'm more on the people tell me they're working on it and they're going to try it. I'm a softie. I guess I am. I buy people's stories. The girls are always yelling at me, telling me I'm too soft.
We love you and keep up the good work. So you're tentatively approved.
Okay.
Go do something fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys, hopefully you're not in this meeting too long.
We'll be quick.
All right.
How about if we jump to the road improvement fund sheet?
That's easy. We're putting money in and there's nothing else on here, right? This goes to our tri-party.
It is. We are putting money in. There are two things that I think that the township board should realize are on the horizon. First and foremost, Union Lake Road is going to be closed for 2 months, summer of 2021. Part of that is replacing the culverts from Union Lake into Hayes Creek. There is a sewer line, there are water lines, there is the Buckeye pipeline. And with that project, Dave Campbell, Jay and I, we met with the road commission digitally, and Hubble Roth and Clark is the company that the road commission of Oakland County has hired to do the engineering and details. And Jason Mayer from Giffel Webster's was part of this. One of the things that came up is the walkability of that intersection. The road commission, within the scope of their job, has no funding whatsoever for walkability, crosswalk, or sidewalk across that site. I would suggest if it's possible, it would be a tri-party fund amendment to that. It's not owned by Ameritace, it's not owned by the DNR. The DNR put in their sidewalk, so there's sidewalk on one side. So trying to make this a walkable site, it might be a quality and a low expense tri-party fund bike path or sidewalk in that location. The road commission is more inclined to do it on the west side of the road than on the east side of the road. So through Sally's parking lot, as opposed to trying to go over top of the water level control dam between the new boat launch and a Matter of Taste. So that's one project that potentially you're going to be asked to contribute and participate on. The second one is, you all know that we did the traffic study with the Road Commission of Oakland County for the realignment of Union Lake to Martin Road, or the solution for the Union Lake and Richardson debacle. We know that 35,000 cars come to that intersection every morning, 15,000 turn left, 20,000 turn right, and they all come back together at Pontiac Trail and M5. Just a matter of who thinks what's going where. That project, that realignment, when we're looking at Tiger grants and funding, federal funding, state funding, whatever the case may be a place for tri-party funding. So those are the two that I would throw out there. The third tri-party funding, I've mentioned it long ago. I've not harped on it. Continuing Newton Road north to Wise through Victory Park would give us access to our park property. It would give us more than one way in and out of a park. Victory Park is a very large lot of land, so having two ways in would be of benefit. And when I originally went to the property owners, there's only one property owner at Newton and Commerce Road. That's the Long family. Christine and Rob were interested in participating in allowing, if Commerce chose to put a road, or the road commission chose to put a road through to Wise Road, for the Long family was on board. But I would suggest those are your three big projects. Two of them for sure are coming. One of them would just be a dream catcher if you chose to enhance Victory Park as a more accessible property from the south. And it would increase the traffic flow across the township alternately. So other than that, I would just, the only thing I'm saying is a simple, carry the money over, but understand there are a couple of ideas out there on tri-party that someone's going to turn to you folks in 2021 to say, do you want to participate or do you want to do without walkability, things of that nature. But definitely Union Lake Road is closing for 2 months, 20 yards south of Wise Road.
So it's, look, so we had that discussion in the planning commission last night. It's actually worse than that, Dave. So they are going to repave Union Lake Road from Richardson all the way up to Cooley Lake. This year, which is going to take it down to 1 lanes or so at varying times. Then they're going to tear all that new asphalt up to redo the culvert X number of months later.
Right.
Rather
So why don't they
in reverse order?
So
but it's a 30-yard section. They did the same thing on
yeah, but it does
do the same thing on Wise Road, which looks like maybe open now. I saw someone told me they drove through it today.
It is open.
Yeah, so it's they're actually going to start in, I guess, a little over 2 to 3 weeks now. First week in October is what I was told.
Correct.
Start what?
Paving Union Lake Road.
They were waiting for Wise Road to open up. It fell off their radar for some reason, so it's back on their schedule.
Yeah, the other paving project that is coming to Commerce that it hasn't been on the radar, but it's about to initiate is Cary Road will be paved from Commerce north to Cooley Lake Road. So the Beacon Hill, Jason Golf Crest, Vernal Lane, all those.
That's awful.
Yeah, that's a bad road.
That'll be a positive, and people are very eager about it. The one that people are turning, that we're getting a lot of calls, at least at my office on, is Juniper Drive. Juniper Drive, 15 years ago, the road commission was ready to treat it like it's a through road, and they were going to repave it and not do an SAD. At some time, they abandoned that process, said it's a residential road, and we aren't redoing residential roads. Juniper Road, if you haven't driven down it recently, it'd be easier to just grind it and turn it into a gravel road, as bad as it is. But tentatively, just trying to do stay on target. Road Improvement Fund, adding money to it, hanging on to it, but understand you have those projects that are on the horizon that are going to be coming to us. The last 2 tri-party projects we did, I guess I should tell you one more, but the last 2 tri-party projects we did were the turn lane from Oakley Park to go northbound on Newton, and then our contribution to the Carroll Lake and Cooley roundabout. The other project that the people are ranting about again, the Russell Beach Homeowners Association and Cascade Street. They did a petition. They went to the road commission. They said they wanted to amend the road and make it one way, basically putting a dirt berm and barrier on the westbound lanes of Cascade Street. The road commission said yes. The police department said yes. The fire department said yes, both in Commerce and White Lake Township. It's a shared road. Then the road commission told the Russell Beach Homeowners Association, send us a check for $45,000. We'll get it done. They went, no. We want the townships to pay for this. We said no. Rick Kowal from White Lake said no. I said no. This was a small subdivision association project. They said they wanted to do it. There's actually a developer who wants to build a lot there, and he's willing to pay for the dirt to go on the road and do the barriers for the sake of discussion. They're going to be coming back to the township board in my absence, because I will not support this project. Just so you are aware, they think that it's a White Lake Commerce problem and that you should pay for it. I disagree. They want to make an amendment to their subdivision. It's like abandoning a road. You want to abandon a road, you want to be responsible for it. It can be done, but understand the ramifications. That really is the 4th road project that the citizens are going to try and force on the White Lake Township Board of Trustees and the Commerce Township Board of Trustees when I'm gone. Guarantee it.
Okay. So road,
But with that,
road commission, road improvement fund moving forward, as it is. What do we want to cover next? Cemetery or museum?
Museum, since it's the
How about
easier
cemetery?
one.
Oh, museum's an easy one. Go ahead.
There's nothing in there.
The
only
question
question
on the
I
museum
had on
one
there.
Yep.
Well, the question is there's been discussion over time, and I don't know, and maybe we need to talk about this at a, what do we call those, quarterly session or something, but what are we using this for? And are we just holding it? I mean, there's some historical significance to this fund and money, well over 15 years ago. I don't know. And there was talk about possibly using it over at the farmhouse for whatever comes to that, which we still haven't heard anything on that. But so anyway, that's more of my question. And what can we just get brought up to date with what you know about it?
So I would, well, do you want to, Bob, just then put that as a discussion topic for one of the quarterlies?
If you think it's more appropriate to do it that way. I mean, this really has nothing to do with the budget, but
that would be my point. It's really it is what it is in terms of a budget discussion.
Okay. So let's do that as to what we think we're doing with it. I'm not trying to tick off a whole bunch of residents that may have an idea of what they want the museum fund to be, but otherwise it's just sitting there.
Well, and the reality is the last thing that any of this money was utilized for was the refurbishing of the Regina music box that we have stored in Molly's office. Please, in absence, make sure she doesn't take it home. But with that, there are issues where a lot of this money came from donations by a log when we were going to rebuild, when Mr. Long's administration was going to rebuild Abram Walrod's log cabin. That fell aside. We didn't refund money. We still have that money. So it is a discussion. So we'll make the museum fund tentatively approved to carry over, and we'll make it a topic at a discussion meeting for sure.
A lot of the money is from the sale of Commerce Township quilts.
Yes.
Quilts,
cups, and
tiles.
Tiles.
Yep.
And coffee mugs.
Coffee mugs.
Tiles, cookbooks, coffee mugs.
And which are coming to an end. If you don't have one, get in and buy one. And if you're on YouTube and you're watching, come to the Township Hall after tax season, buy a coffee mug, buy a quilt, buy a cookbook, and buy a tile for your, because they are dwindling. I think I've brought everyone that we have from the old Township Hall in storage to the treasurer's office so they can be disposed of by sale.
Sold. Yes.
Yep. Yes. By being sold. The next and final one is the cemetery fund, 2021 budget worksheet. Trying to see if I printed off the new one or if I have an old one.
Does it include the numbers from our last meeting?
The new contract numbers?
I checked that. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
What is the and I don't know if Missy or Molly or Janet, I'm not sure who's the best. What is the transfer in, the $10,000?
From the general fund every year.
General fund. Okay. So is that an annual, we transfer in $10,000?
It's used for the stone
cleaning.
Yeah, the
restoration.
That's actually what I was going to ask if did we do that this year?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, he's still.
So okay. Well, I was going to say we don't have that listed, and I only say because I was out there with Boy Scouts putting stuff, and there's still a lot of them out there that look like they could be.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work that he still can do.
Sure. And
he asked me last time we spoke that if we wanted him to go over to the Richardson Cemetery, and I don't want to be the one to just make that call alone, because there's still a lot that needs to be done over in the both cemeteries off of Commerce Road. So I don't know if he wants to concentrate on one and then move to the next, but he said the one on Richardson needs a lot of attention. So I said, give me a proposal on what you want to do, and we'll tell him which way to go.
Yeah, I would, I mean, he's the expert. I would lean on, I think we should lean on him to help prioritize for us where,
Yeah. And he has been selecting the headstones that are in, the worst shape to repair right now.
Missy, have
Now,
we,
Missy-
I know we've gotten into a situation where we've had, and I don't want to use Barb Garbutt's name, but Barb Garbutt out of her pocket is donating money to get headstones refurbished. Is 10,000 been a functional number for us to refurbish headstones, or should we be going higher?
I think he's doing fine on 10,000.
Okay.
Well, in the past, we've done matching. So there has been folks like, if there's folks that wanted to donate, again, I'm not sure how we make that known, but if there's folks that wanted to donate, then the township has matched those funds.
It's been a few years since we've seen a donation.
Right. I was going to say, 4 years ago, it was in the ballpark of about 5,000 a year. That's where the 10 came from, I think. So
are we not transferring in $10,000 this year?
And we are.
That was my question.
It says 0. I was just.
Oh, sorry. It should say 10.
Okay.
I didn't know if you guys want.
Yeah, I think you said you're going to leave it blank, Janet, till we told you. So yeah.
So the only other question I have, and it gets back to levels of uncertainty for 2021, is that the year we want to do the paving at for that, or do we want to wait? One, we have a lot of other things going on there. We're going to obviously fencing and some shrubbery, but do we want to hit that $225,000 or so expense in 2021, or do we want to revisit that for 2022?
Well, we have the funds, right?
We have some of the.
It drops the cemetery fund down to
60,000.
60,000.
No,
I think that's.
The cemetery fund's going to be lower than that.
Yeah.
Because because what you're starting with is where the fund balance, the 350 is now. And again, you don't have September, October, November, or December's expenses out of it, which if you look at this and we want to put the fencing and the arborvitae's up this year, we've only got 3,000 in building and ground maintenance. Whatever that fence and those arborvitae's are going to cost still has to come out. Our interest in dividends, I don't think are going to be anywhere near as high as they are projected because interest is back down to 0.03%. If our contractual services, we've paid 18 of the 25, so we've got 7 to go or 7,500 to go. So there's a lot of expenses that aren't out of this money. So you're not starting with an opening fund balance of $350,000. So
is the 50,000 from the sale of property already in there? Is that 49.7?
That's this year's. Yes, that's what we.
So that money was put into the cemetery fund.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's listed under 2020 and amended budget. I guess I would. Okay. My opinion is I would like to see you keep this money in there. Keep this as a potential project. You may be able to partner with another project, whether it's the paving or repair work we do at the new construction of Station 3, whether it's some other site. There are events going on, whether it's bike paths or things where you can, if you will, cut down on mobilization costs and partner and say, we're going to do this at the same time that we do X, Y, or Z. If you have this money in the budget, I would suggest that you move forward with it. But my opinion, I think there's a value in this. Our historic cemeteries, I think the best thing you're ever going to be able to do is put in a limestone pathway to keep people off of grave sites and keep them in the path of travel. This one, I think we have to take a leadership role and prioritize it. I do believe that we'll have the support and the funding to do it, but we probably can turn to when Wolverine Lake does their Veterans Memorial parking lot or some other project where we can partner with them and say, you're doing paving there, let's jump on the same thing and cut down on mobilization and do 2 projects at the same time.
So looking out a few years, if we were to do that project, since the cemetery fund usually runs at a negative every year, how many years until it goes negative, and then how are we gonna fund it in the future? I mean, looking out 4 years, even if we did this project.
Well, we signed the contract with the sexton, so we know what the costs are going to be for the next period.
3 years.
Which is exactly my point, to
Yeah.
where we'll know pretty much when we're gonna run out of money. So I would just like to know what that's gonna look like, and is general fund then just gonna be handling the cemetery, or are we doing fundraising, or what, you know? So we have money right now, but we won't in a couple of years if we do it.
No, I agree.
Right.
I mean, obviously the sale of plots are going to refurbish some of the money spent. The possibility of and we can utilize the research done by the city of Wixom. They just did all the work for what it's going to cost to have a columbarium put in for cremated remains. I know that the clerk's office gets lots of inquiries where they would like to have columbariums, the wall, if you will, where you can put your loved one's ashes. I think there are revenue opportunities in there. I just would hate to see you not stay with the momentum that we have. And once it's done, you know, it's just a minor amount of maintenance to keep it going until the fund balance can grow bigger. And then you can go to the second circle or some other project, which I think is going to be many, many years away from this board acting on.
Well, I mean, this fund operates in a negative every year. There is never a rebuilding. The contract is for 30 to 40,000 over the next couple of years, and we're bringing in 10 to 12,000 a year. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So there's always money that would have to come out of the general fund if we use it all up on the roads. Now we do have a, you know, to me, this is a need and a want issue. I would like, I still think we should keep an eye on it, but I also, if we learn from anything, is to decide how this will go over. I don't want to rile more people up with loved ones in the cemetery for paving a road. So I just think, you know, if George's going to have a contact with somebody, maybe have we felt out from folks in the cemetery that have loved ones there, what thoughts are? I mean, I don't, either way, I'm not in favor of doing it this next year.
No, I appreciate that. I can tell you the people that I have reached out to, they appreciate the idea that we as a township are entrusted with the care of their loved ones. They would like to see it paved. They would like to see the road maintained so that there is no wiggle room or wandering on a muddy or wet day going left or right. I don't want to ever see us get in a situation where we're like the historic cemetery on Richardson Road, where the tires of a vehicle essentially touch headstones on either side. Which of course that was built before, you know, that was in 1833 before the automobile, and it's a rare, not an apple to apple example.
I think there's value in paving this just for that, so it adds certainty to where the road is and where graves and headstones are. But agree with Bob. I just don't think 2021's the year for that, and would be happy to look at it in 2022, understanding we're going to have to continue to fund the cemetery fund out of the general fund.
One additional comment, if you're saying that a columbarium wall is something that people are interested in as opposed to buying a full plot, I would assume that the cemetery fund or the township would be on the hook for building a columbarium wall over plots that are not yet purchased. So we're losing the potential revenue from those plots, and we have to build a wall and maintain the wall. So has anybody researched how much that is? Is it a couple $100,000? Is it 50?
Wixom just did this. They're in the process of adding a columbarium to their board is considering, their council is considering adding a columbarium. They have a sample in their city hall right now. So the numbers are there. It just, I guess my stance is, and not to beat a dead horse, if you have the money in the budget, even if you don't act to spend it, it's there. If you do a realization that in a few months you realize, hey, we've recovered from COVID, things are moving forward really good, elections are over with, and we have the money there, we should do it. There's nothing that says you have to do it. But if you don't take the time to reserve that as a possibility, it's like a tri-party project. If you're not going to put it on the list,
the fund balance is the fund balance, though.
Yeah,
I mean, we can.
Well, I don't know. You can take it out of road improvement fund too. Although you've got stuff coming up with that. I just don't know. I think we have so many unknowns with the road stuff going on and everything else. I think the idea is good to keep on the books, if that's the right word, or on the list, but I'm not in favor for it this year.
Well, and like I said,
I get it. That's fine.
If you have it on the list, it's a possibility. It still takes board action for it to proceed.
Well, I agree in waiting also, and maybe using this year to kind of brainstorm as to if we're going to do it in 2021, how are we going to fund the cemetery fund in the future? Because we need to have that discussion.
How did they get money in there, Rick? You've been here since we did the 1833 thing. How did we get money in that fund to begin with?
I drove my first SUV back in the 1800s.
There you go.
It's been, well, the township put a fund, put some money in, but one of the things we probably need to look at, it's been a lot of years since we've adjusted the cost of the plots.
Yep.
So this is probably, I would say, my opinion is, let's look at if we are going to do any type of crematorium or any kind of mausoleum, whatever we end up doing, any kind of a building, let's look at the whole thing and then let's do the math. How much is it going to take? How many plots left are there to sell? And let's come up with, it should be simple math to come up with what it's going to take. And then let's make the adjustments. So that's something we should do.
We can also see what surrounding townships cemetery plot costs are too, to make sure
we're low.
We're
low. Yeah,
I'm sure we're low.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that goes to a bigger discussion that the cemetery fund is the cemetery in total, whether it's the ordinance, whether it's the sale price, everything needs a discerning eye from the board in 2021 to make those decisions.
Can we push this to the cemetery committee? Is this appropriate, Missy, for them to look and evaluate this if they need more help? I mean, I'll be willing to help, or George, I guess. We can't have too many of us on there, but.
Yeah, I'd help too. I don't think.
There you go.
I think this is more of a board action.
I agree.
Well, certainly the action's a board, but I think including that, what do we have them for then?
But we don't generally ask the boards to figure out the pricing of something.
No. I don't mean that. I meant as far as this columbarium stuff and all those type things.
Missy, is the cemetery board a paid position?
No.
I didn't think
No,
so.
and there's a list we have, and it's a longer list than who is actually on it.
Yeah.
So
maybe this is a good place to reach out to like Mr. Miller or someone like that and see if he'd want to get involved, or some of the people that have loved ones in the cemetery. Let's talk to them. Let's get some input from them.
Well, and you would have to include people who have loved ones in all of the cemeteries, because as far as the paving is specifically to the Benstein Road Cemetery, but if you're talking about, we've mentioned the possibility of putting up privacy fencing between the cemeteries and the abutting houses and having the wrought iron in the front. We've talked about all kinds of different things, and this fund is supposed to fund all of them and all of the repairs and all of the maintenance. And obviously, some of the cemeteries are relatively full, and you're not selling plots in there anymore. But that doesn't mean that they don't get any of the money anymore. So it's not as simple as just looking at it from who's got a loved one in this one particular. You got to look at all of it, because I I look at the one on the south side of Commerce Road and the privacy fencing that's 6 different colors of whatever going along those properties, and then it's fallen down, and then there isn't any, and then it's chain link. But you got this beautiful wrought iron that goes up both sides and along the road, and it, you know, quite frankly, it doesn't look real good. So
I think you bring up a great point, Molly. So we have this 300 and some $1,000 in the fund. It's really, how do we want to prioritize that? Do we prioritize the fencing for the existing properties ahead of the paving? That's kind of, I think, where
sometimes the fencing can be more important, because if you've got kids that are hopping a fallen down chain link fence and traipsing through the cemetery so that they can get to Commerce Road and walk to the library, that's a problem.
I understand. I agree with you on the fencing. The one part of the fencing I don't agree with is because the one resident chose to spend thousands of dollars on a privacy fence. We shouldn't have to spend that kind of money to match it.
No, I'm just saying that had been mentioned before as a possibility, that's, you know, whether it's a 4-inch wrought iron or something, but to have, you know, 9 different kinds of fencing going around them, just.
But even if we did a wrought iron, it's not going to stop the neighbors in that neighborhood than putting up a regular wooden privacy fence. That's all I'm saying. We can't control the fencing that they're putting up on their side.
So can we add this to either the October or the January discussion meeting? Because we're past the budget.
It's a great October, but from the budget standpoint, do you want me to leave the 265 in the building and grounds maintenance?
My vote is no.
Any other opinions? It's a discussion.
I kind of tend to agree. I think it's too much. I think it's a lot of money, and we need to focus on the fencing.
Okay, Janet, if you can amend that, and we'll take that 265 out of the building and grounds, leave it in the fund balance, and then the board can decide with the assistance of the cemetery board what they want to do and prioritize. We all know that the north side of Commerce Road is a parking lot where the kids go in and park so they can go back and hike in Victory Park. I'm an adamant supporter. We have been entrusted with the loved ones of our ancestors, whether it's Samuel Morris, Sarah Manning, Kathy Martin. Many of us are friends with these people, and they're important to us. So I appreciate that. We'll leave this with that adjustment as a tentatively approved.
I just don't want the paving to be forgotten about over the years, though.
No,
I think it needs to be done eventually.
We'll put it in the October discussion meeting. That's an easy one to do. The one thing I did want to mention to you as the board, there have been some comments that have been made just for whatever reason that I was going to be mean and walk out. I'm here to help any of you, even after if I'm gone. I have told any candidate who's going to come in, my goal was to leave it better than I found it and help anybody in a transition. So please understand that is my stance. Commerce is way too important for me to be pouty and not help. From a positive there. On a business standpoint, I don't know if we're ready to go on the next budget meeting, because numbers crunching and everything like that, with Janet and payroll and all the things she has on her board, I don't know that we can go. So is it okay if we cancel the next budget date to give more time to finish up the next round of numbers we're going to review?
So what?
No.
What do we have left?
General fund, but we have to have our L4029s into Oakland County by the 30th. Okay. Which, if we end up with anything that says, let's research this, let's get better prices, let's get another thing, and that comes out next week on the 22nd, then we've got, you know, the 29th where we can do it. And if we wait until the 29th and we have additional questions, we're not getting our numbers into Oakland County on the 30th for anything.
But how does that affect general funds budget?
Well, there's discussions about what we're doing with the charter deputies and the charter library monies. We've had side discussions on that. Whether, I mean, heaven forbid, there might be a discussion as to whether or not we up our millage rates within our amount that we can't you know, have a vote. And I don't want to do that, but I mean, everybody seems to be looking at pinching budgets from funds where the general fund can't touch the money anyway. But I think if we push it out 2 weeks, we're going to put ourselves over a barrel that we're going to have possibly incomplete information. My opinion, I don't know.
Well, and I appreciate it. I just believe that with everything we have on our plates, myself, Janet, and everybody else, if we can just, I don't anticipate we're going to run into any of those price wars or concerns. I did send you during the meeting, all of you, the email that our revenue sharing will be safe. We're good. Just so you can read that at your leisure. But I guess I don't want to haphazardly rush to put something before you and then again have to wait to the 29th or something to get it right.
So can we look at Thursday or even Friday if that works? So to give time rather than pushing it to Tuesday, would another couple of days help smooth that out?
Well, I mean, we have the parks, they should be ready. We've met and gone over all that budget stuff. So the park stuff should be good. What have we not seen? Clerk's office, treasurer's office.
Yeah. General fund.
General fund.
Well, it's really general fund and parks are the large dollars, right?
I mean, I'm sort of online with Molly. I should just get this done because we have to have this stuff in by a certain time. And
hey Dave, when are you planning on us voting on the whole budget?
Well, it's got to be the 29th.
Yeah, the 29th.
We can't approve the whole budget until the public hearing.
Right, it's got to be like October. We don't have to. It doesn't. Even though it doesn't make sense, we can give Molly the numbers to submit, and then you vote on it later. I know that doesn't make sense, but that's usually we approve the budgets in October.
The regular budget meeting will approve the budget in October. In the October regular board meeting would be my target.
So the operating is going to stay at the 1.41. We've never changed that. We'll know the millage rates. I didn't think we were still discussing police or fire. I thought we decided on what those rates were going to be.
We already sent those in.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fixed.
So all we have left is
the 1.41.
Yeah, which we're not going to amend.
Well, you've got so you tentatively approved the library budget. I'm assuming you're taking the voted Headley max. And
well, that's not an adjustable millage. I mean, I don't think none of the parks and the ones were voted at a certain amount. So those aren't up to, those are whatever the, right?
There's the Headley maximum, which is less than what it was voted in at because it goes down every year. And then you could always make it lower if you're trying to save your people money. And then we have the charter township, which right now we allocate 0.3 mils of that to sheriff and 0.3 to the library and 1.41 to township operating, which leaves us, you know, some significant millage that is not being charged.
I have no reason to, I'm not going to increase the 1.41.
No.
And the other two are potential. You don't want to lower. I mean, they just need to stay the 0.3 for eternity.
Yeah.
Now, the only discussion is whether we want to take the library one because they are funded out of their millage and move that. Where does that go to? The general fund, I suppose. I don't know how much that really gives us, but
provides flexibility.
I just would say that I believe for the benefit of Janet, we won't hurt ourselves by making this next finalization the 29th and then moving on to approve an October regular board meeting.
So we'll know what we know even right now, what the millage rates are. How we spend each dollar doesn't have to be decided by September 30th.
Right.
No. I mean, really doesn't have to be decided till next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do an amended budget anyway.
Only once only one time in my history, we could not come to an agreement on a budget and we actually had to meet on New Year's Day, and we met all day. We had to do it until the budget was passed. We could not open up business the next day without it being passed. I don't ever want to have to do that, spend my entire New Year's Day at the Township Hall fighting over a budget.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Molly, with the discussion that just took place, what are your thoughts still that the 22nd is, or sometime another meeting prior to the 29th is important? Or
Well,
can we?
I'm only one vote and I have no idea what status any of the general fund other than my department. I have no idea what the status of anybody else's budget is. So if there are a bunch of budgets in there that haven't been scrubbed and looked at, then
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's still some I'm waiting for, so.
That won't change the millage rates that we need to
No.
submit though, right,
No.
Molly?
No.
So we can
I'm
still,
just going back to, I've had people ask me about whether or not we're going to do 0.3 for the sheriff and 0.3 for the library, or whether or not we're going to be able to put those back into the general fund to secure some other things that we know are coming down the road. So if
That was
I have
me.
to have my rate sheets into Oakland County by the 30th, that's a key piece of information that I need to know.
So I thought the 0.3 was part of our police budget.
It is.
So I thought we
Well,
already
0.3
approved
is
that.
part of your library budget too, but they have fund balance available.
I understand. But the police one, I thought we've already agreed on that.
We did.
Yeah.
We still have to pay Wolverine Lake out of it. So if you moved that, you'd have to still pay Wolverine Lake out of it. So if we made a decision to move library to general fund, doesn't change what numbers you submit, does it? Or does it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I split it out between township operating, library, and sheriff department.
Why would you want, the voters gave us authority they voted to that 0.3 mils to be perpetual. We can't do that anymore with Headley. Why would you ever want to change that? That one, the one that you can adjust will be the actual millage, the library, the SADs, or that one you can play with, but the other one, we should not ever touch that.
Well, the only play in the voted millage is the Headley calculates it down to what the maximum is that we can charge for the year.
Right.
We could knock it down, but we can't charge more than what Headley says. The other ones are not voted in. They were done by the township board, and according to Phil and Hans, they don't have to remain designated for the sheriff and the library if the general fund feels they need them back. All there has to be is an agreement by the new board that you don't want 0.3 of your charter millage to go and be designated for the library or for the police anymore. Those are the only two separate ones the board ever split out. And they weren't voted by the people, and they weren't in perpetuity. They were there, according to Phil and Hans.
I think it's a good discussion to have. I mean, we don't want to do something we don't want to go backwards on those 0.3 mils that are presently earmarked for police and library. It's just at some point in time, are we going to, with all the numbers that we've seen on what's going to happen in 6 years from now on, as result of the DDA, do we want to start building up more money for that?
So the original plan, if you had the 1.41 ever since I've been on the board, and we used to pay a large part of that one for police and fire. We had a couple of small police millages. The idea then with the DDA, when we got into trouble on the funding of it, is that's what we want to create the separate, totally funded police, totally funded fire. And those are the SADs. That way we have the declining 5 mil limitation that would be declining. We're not touching that. Once we are paid off the bonds or to the point where it's funding itself, the idea was then you could look at the 1.41 and do like no other community has ever done and lower your operating fund because you don't need as much money then. But we're still years away from doing that, especially since we don't know if this shopping center can get built now or not.
Can we cancel the 22nd?
That's fine. Let's cancel it. Do it the 29th. You know what the numbers are. Let's not change anything this year. We can discuss it. I'd like to know what legal ramifications we had if we wanted to move it before we do.
Okay.
So I agree.
Can I back up for a minute?
Yes, please.
Back up to the cemetery. What are we leaving in the building and grounds maintenance? We have to, there's, what the whole 265 was not for paving. So what's being left?
So I
What
think
was it in
the
the past?
paving was 2.25. So I would take your building and grounds maintenance and subtract 2.25 from that.
40,000.
Oh, 40,000.
Well, we've
Yeah,
only
it's
been
correct.
spending about 5,000 a year, but
Well, can we leave it just for whatever?
we can leave 40,000. I'm good.
Just want to make sure we
Yeah.
have run maintenance covered.
Yep. Agreed.
And if, for that matter, if you want to leave the
Well,
year-on cemetery maintenance and the balance of the 50,000 not spent on fence and
right. That's what I was
Street.
going to say, because
Yeah.
the 40,000 doesn't cover the fence. Well, I don't know what it's going to cost, but the fence and
Yeah.
all the stuff that we're doing, which should come out of that. So maybe leave 65,000 in there. And
Yeah.
then, so we'll at least know, just pull 200 out.
does that make sense, Missy?
Yep.
Okay.
Wait a second, are you talking about the fence and the
Arborvitae and
go in this year?
Yep.
And then possible chain link at the back of the north side of the Commerce Road Cemetery.
Okay, but isn't that covered in the 60,000 that we still got 57 left to spend this year?
It should
We would
be.
need it in next year's budget.
It's just we had approved to do fencing this year. We did not do. So we would want to carry that project over so that the funding is there to cover it.
So just go to the fund balance at the end of this year, right? And it would still be available to us.
Yes.
Okay,
But-
so instead of doing the fencing that we budgeted for this year, we're doing the fencing on Benstein and the vegetation,
Correct.
because we still have additional fencing that we need to do next year.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
and we're canceling the 22nd, right? I take it off
Correct.
my books. I'm done. All right.
Thank you
delete.
all. Any other comments, questions, concerns,
There
or
are no other matters. Let's adjourn.
motion to
Support.
adjourn?
Support.
Motion by
Roll
Scott,
call.
support by Burkheiser. Roll call vote.
So the 29th.
Scott,
Aye.
Burkheiser,
Aye.
Creech, aye. Weber,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Sobel.
Aye.
Okay.
And if I don't get eaten by the three bears wandering the campground, I'll see you Saturday morning.
All right.
So just to clarify, I'll take the
Saturday, for
27th.
what day?
Yes, Ken Milburn, if you could cancel the Zoom meeting for the 22nd, please.